I hired quite a number of people who went to MIT, Harvard, Oxford, and other top schools. And most of the times they're really smart and capable and end up becoming great employees. However, there's one major flaw which many of these people who went to top schools have. And if you did not go to a top school, you may actually have a little competitive edge over them in some aspect. I think one of my personal greatest strengths is the fact that I don't have very high expectations in life, which means that if things just go wrong for me, which they very often have in my life, I don't get completely destroyed by this because I was kind of expecting it in the first place. Most MIT, Harvard, and other top university graduates have really high expectations in life. And they should have. After all, they went to some of the finest institutions on the planet and are surrounded by other incredibly smart people. To get to where they are, they must have almost always been among the very best. From elementary school, middle, high school, they probably did extremely well in their final exams and likely won a lot of awards in sports or academic competitions. And particularly in the case of Harvard, they likely have very successful parents as well, who either went to Harvard themselves or at least have a lot of money to provide the very best for their children and pay for the very expensive tuition. The problem though with people who have extremely high expectations, even when they're justified, is that oftentimes they have very low resilience. And that doesn't really matter too much. When you're trying to climb a hill, you usually just walk upwards all the time. But once you finish climbing that hill of graduating from a top school, you will naturally expect that over the coming years, you're going to climb actual mountains. Do you know what the big difference is between a hill and a mountain? Hills are usually quite smooth, and mountains are rough. That means if you want to climb an actual mountain, the path isn't straight up anymore. You have to go through many ups and downs on the journey. And this is brutal, painful, it requires a lot of resilience. The problem here is that many people who went to top universities never really had to go through rough terrain. That is not to say that they didn't have to work hard. I think virtually everyone who made it into MIT or Harvard or some other top school had to work really hard throughout their life, be really smart to get to where they are. The problem though is that if you want to make it to the real top in life and really become professionally successful, you will have to go through extremely rough terrain. And if you don't have the resilience to go through this, you're in a very bad position. Unfortunately, there's just no way to teach resilience. The only way you can become more resilient is through some pain and suffering. And naturally, everyone has some kind of breaking point. That means people who end up becoming drug addicts or end up in jail or end up committing suicide, they're usually people who were pushed past that breaking point in life. I don't wish anyone that amount of pain and suffering. Also, not every kind of pain makes you more resilient. There exists the kind of pain that helps you grow, become a better person, a better version of yourself. But there also exists a kind of needless pain, if you're really just in a lot of physical pain all the time, this doesn't really make you much more resilient. It's just terrible and sad if you have to go through that. Growing up, I was fortunate enough that I never had to go through such extreme pain and suffering. While my parents were neither wealthy nor very well connected to offer me the same level of opportunities that most of my friends at MIT and Harvard had growing up, they always took care of me and I'm super grateful for that. But at the same time, so many things went wrong in my life. I got kicked out of several middle schools due to behavioral issues. And I really wanted to leave my home country of Croatia for a better life and better education. Yet somehow, despite winning several medals at the International Physics Olympiad in high school, everything that could go wrong went wrong and I ended up being stuck in Croatia. I talk about this in my video called My Life Principles for Success. A few years later, my big dream of doing a PhD at MIT finally comes true. However, I ended up completely stuck with my project and became really depressed. During that time, I recorded my video called My Whole Life is a Mess that you can check out later if you want to. And even right now, as I'm filming this video, I'm going through the biggest crisis in my professional life. I lost about 8 kilograms of weight over the last couple of weeks just from all the stress that I've been going through, with no real end in sight. To be completely honest, some of these sufferings have really set me back in life. And there are days when I just daydream about where my life could be now if all of this hadn't happened. But at the same time, I know that all this pain and suffering that I did go through really helped me build character and a strong resilience. And in many ways, this is the reason why I don't have very high expectations in life. And if you don't have high expectations, then the moment things don't go the way you expected them to go, you're not going to get completely thrown off course. With all of this, I'm wishing you, in a good way, a reasonable amount of pain and suffering to go through in your life. Not to the level that it will break you, but to the level that will help you become a better, more resilient person, and very importantly, a person of kindness and empathy for other people who are also going through their own difficulties in their own lives. All I can say is don't be afraid to take on huge challenges in life that will most likely result in failure, because one way or another, something good is going to come out of it. And if you have already gone through a lot of pain and suffering in life, you should know that, while obviously I cannot take this away from you, even though I wish I could, at the bare minimum, it made you a better and more resilient person, ready to climb mountains. And with that, I want to thank Brilliant.org for kindly agreeing to sponsor this video. Brilliant is a platform for learning by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons online ranging from data science, math, AI, physics, and others. While there exist no courses that can teach you to become more resilient, at least you can learn other things such as becoming fluent in coding, which is super important at the very beginning of the age of AI. For example, you could check out their course on Introduction to Algorithms. The first lesson is called pseudocode. Now, pseudocode is super important for you to understand. If you're not a professional coder but want to talk to people who code, you will have to explain to them in very exact ways how to do something. One example of this might be these exact instructions to a robot to prepare your breakfast. So step number 1 would be to take the milk, add milk to coffee, milk into a bowl. Correct, there we go. To try everything Brilliant has to offer, free of charge for 30 days, just go to brilliant.org/Samuel Bosch or click on the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off their annual premium subscription. With that, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up for the algorithm, subscribe to my channel. Wishing you a little bit of suffering in a good way. Thanks for watching. Take care.